That's what she did, I think, for Seaford's Bank.
Do you know her name or something? Or is that big? Is that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
but I know she was at the first one and David was at the first one. Because there's not that many that have been at the, started out at the very first one down at the old Moor.
Oh, you remember? Oh, you remember that. So what were the early festivals like?
Cheaper. And a lot less popular than they are now.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think now it seems to have a to go to the festival like a bigger deal in Seattle. It seems like the last few years the crowds have just been much bigger than they've ever been before. This year was just amazing to go to a film festival and see a crowd going around the corner and just hundreds of people waiting to see a movie, and probably not even a good movie, but just like not even a time for any kind of word of mouth and nothing like that. Just so the crowds have just went up amazing, and they're a lot more expensive now than they used to be. The prices. It's double. I think it was $100 when I started going, or $125, and you didn't have to pay for the film festival card that you have to pay the $25 for to be a member of. How does one look at this thing? Straight at it, above it?
You can look at me or whatever.
Okay, cool.
Just ignore the camera.
Okay.
And I'll just look at the camera every once in a while to make sure that you're within frame.
Okay.
So were the prices with the pass going up? Was it within inflationary, or did it all of a sudden, it's $25 more this year?
Well, I think it's within inflation. I think it's both inflation and popularity. Still the best deal in town. I'm one of those people that has to get a certain amount of films to make it cost effective. So I pay $250. This year I hit 100 films, and that was the first time I ever hit 100 films. And I had to go see one twice. I had to go see Shall We Dance twice. And it was a decision I made at the last moment. I just thought, well, 99, see it again, even though I didn't care. It was okay, but I didn't care for it that much, to see again.
So how did you manage to see 100 films? What was your strategy? Did you go to all the Midnighters, or did you?
No, I only saw, I'm too old to see Midnighters. It's got to be a real good movie for a Midnighter, and they usually aren't that good. And by the time a Midnighter comes around, it's usually like I'm through. I've already seen 4 or 5 movies for the day, and I'm getting where about 4, maybe 5 is the limit. But I took 2 weeks off, and so I was able to go to the matinee, to the film press screenings. So some days I've seen like 6, not that many, but dedication.
Yeah. So how did you get involved with foreign film and the Seattle Film Festival, as opposed to just seeing movies everyone else sees?
Well, I like the movies everyone else sees, but I like foreign films. Foreign films are the way you can, to my way of thinking, you can see another country and see part of another country's culture, how they see the world without going to the foreign country. So I think I seen my first foreign films back in Great Falls, Montana, like back in, maybe the late 50s. We'd have a film festival which usually consisted of 4 Japanese films or something like that, playing at the local civic center. But I think foreign films are generally better than American films.
And better in what way?
Well, that's what I should qualify that. I love American film, but I think American films are usually big, spectacular things a lot of times, or I don't think they mirror American society a lot of times, where I think if you see a foreign film, they mirror the society they come in, through principles or philosophy or something like that. But then they're different. I mean, you can always go out and see an American film, but here in Seattle, it's supposed to be a big ongoing city, liberal city, modern city, whatever, and you don't see any good foreign films unless they're ones that make the buck,
So do you have any strategies in selecting your film for the film festival, or did you just go by theater? Or do you walk from theater?
I have a strategy. Try to see as many as I can at the Egyptian because it's close. And, it starts off, like this year I wanted to see 100, so I knew to see 100 I had to average right around 4 a day. So I knew the first 2 weeks of the film festival that I'd really better get moving, because I always know the second 2 weeks are the hardest part of the time, because you start getting burned out and it becomes more of a chore. It's too easy to miss. And then you start doubling up on movies. You might have seen a movie at a matinee, and then it's playing, and you might have one 2-hour period blocked out of all the theaters, and that means you can either go up on Broadway and bum around, or you can go home. And if I go home, it's really hard to get motivated to go back up there after I, get comfortable back at home. So it's see as many as you can in the first couple of weeks. Just get really dedicated and do it.
Have you noticed any trends in foreign films in the last couple of festivals? Have they gotten more American and more Hollywood-like?
Well, it's never been that big Hollywood. It's always been more of the foreign films. I think the last couple of years they've probably been going more towards gay-oriented films and probably independent films. It seemed like there was an awful lot of independent films the last couple of years, which is good, But it wouldn't bother me if they just had the whole foreign films, a whole bunch of them. Subtitles, the whole works, just go ahead and do it,
So that brings up an interesting point. You're a front seater. How does one read subtitles sitting in the front row?
Because you never sit no place else.
Yeah.
And I've been going, I think I've been a pass holder for about 9, 10, 11 years at most. I think I started being a pass holder in '88. I finished a master's degree, and I thought my gift to myself should be a full series pass because I've been going to the festival for 6 or 7 years then. So you could walk in there in 6 years, and if you picked off, at the Egyptian, if you picked the seat to the far left in the front row middle, I would be there. If I wasn't there, I'd be at the Harvard exit at the second from the far left. It's just, and I can look down the rows and I can tell you who's sitting next to me. Well, next to me I can't tell you, those 2 seats, because they go back and forth. But I could look down the front row and I could probably name you 8 out of whoever's there. And if you're not there, there's some other theater. It's just, so it's just doing the front row. There's no place else to sit. I sit no place else in any theater in town unless it's a social type thing. And then I let the other person choose where they want to sit, but why would you sit anyplace else?
So what does the front row offer you that the middle rows don't offer you?
It's like the poster I showed you. It offers you the screen. There's you in the screen, and there's nothing else. There's no movements out of the side of your eyes. There's nobody in front of you can focus on. There's just that big screen sitting up there. You just sort of bond with it, and it's you in the movie.
So have you ever had any disagreements about sitting in someone's in my seat? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh God, yes. It's a horrible feeling.
You can tell me some stories about that.
Well, it takes me back to when I was going to community college, and I started going back, getting my education when I was late in years, and I went into a community college, and they'd give us a psychology class, and they talked about the way that you sit in the seat, and it's your seat. And I remember I took a class in logic, and I took this one seat, and I walked in the next week, and this woman was sitting in my seat. And it was just like I was just dumbfounded. It's like I just stood there. I felt like going up and just confronting her while she was in my seat. And I realized, wait a minute, this is just a class. Then I went back, and the next week I got there first, so I was back in my seat. This woman come up and got right in my face. And she started screaming and yelling at me, "You're in my seat!" And she was being real illogical over, I can understand. And I told her, I said, look, I had this seat the first time. I'm trying to explain to her why. But it's the same way in the film festival. It's like every once in a while, somebody else will grab the front row seat, the one I'm used to sitting in. And it's like you just sort of stand there, and it's like, logically, it's anybody's seat who gets there first now. But it's something missing. But it's like I might miss it one time, but I won't miss it the next time, So I'll go to a film, get in my seat, and then I'll usually leave something on it and have it there all the way through it. Or you have other people go and they'll save the seat for you, because they know you're coming and all that. But it's traumatic.
So the person that sits in your seat, they're probably non-pass holders that don't know any better. Is that what it is?
No, it's anybody's seat.
Oh.
But they're not ongoing film festival people. Because among the people that've been there, like I was talking to you earlier about David, who's been there ever since the film. I wouldn't sit in the seat that was David's. I would go sit in the second row or the third row before I would take his seat. Or any of the other people, and Paul, the guy from the library, he has a certain seat he sits in a lot of time. Well, I might sit in his seat because he's not there every time. But there are certain people that sit in the same seats every film, and they've been doing it as long as I've been there, which is 9 or 10 years. I wouldn't sit in their seat because I'd have no justification. You know, I couldn't justify it. They walked up and said, "Why are you in my seat?" I couldn't say because I was here first. Nah. It's an etiquette.
So what's your strategy to keep fueled with food and sleep during the festival? How do you accommodate that?
It's really hard. A lot of people are junk food people. I think the biggest event at the film festival this year was opening up the new QFC store behind there because they had a lot of different food. I live close enough where I can usually run down here and eat something. But I drink a lot of coffee, a lot more than I usually do, and I eat a lot more junk food than I usually do. Not a lot more, but quite a bit more than I usually do. Sleep, you just got to realize that you ain't going to get no sleep for a period of time. Like, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work. So the last 2 years I've taken 2 weeks vacation to go to the festival, and so I know there's a 2-week period before the vacation comes. I'm just going by the last couple of years where I'm not going to get any sleep. I'm going to get home sometimes at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning if there's a graveyard, and then I've got to get up like the next day for work, and it's just like you just got to bear through it and then get ripping back up there so you can catch the next early one, you know. But luckily I have to sign in and out at work. Well, unluckily, because I'd be able to sneak off, you know, like they start at 5 o'clock and I don't get off till 5:30. So it gets real ugly sometimes just trying to do it, but you do it.
You just tell them that, hey, the film festival's coming up.
Pardon?
You just tell them about the film festival coming up.
They know it.
Oh,
I worked a job for a little bit of time that me and another lady, Linda, that also goes to the festival, we were both working the graveyard shift, but they knew certain periods of the time that we might be 10 or 15 minutes late, stuff like that, because it was festival time. Still have people that I work with that'll talk about, you know, they don't see me that often, and they know it's festival time. I have people that call me up, like a good friend out in California, they won't even call me up during the month of May and June because they know I'm at the festival and I ain't going to be home. It's just like a vacation. Other people go to foreign lands. You know, I go to the Egyptian theater.
Do you remember any incidences of certain films that provoked any crowd reactions or any scenes for the last couple of years?
No. The only ones I can think of would be ones that I walked out on. They were just blah movies. But I don't get too much into strong reactions over films. Film's either something you like or something you don't like. The strong reactions usually come with who's directing it or something like that. But other than that, no, just go in for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and watch the movie, and then just leave it alone. Sometimes a movie will stay with you for a period of time, but.
Are there any movies that have stayed with you for a period of time that you can remember?
Pardon?
Are there any movies that have stayed with you for a period of time that you can remember, or not necessarily titles, but you know, events?
Well, this last one, it stayed with me for, let's say, a period of time that I really liked was that Comrade's Almost a Love Story from Taiwan. I just thought it was just, that movie got more reaction out of me than any other movie probably has in the last 10 years because it's like the director had these endings where it started going into this ending where the guy and the gal weren't going to meet each other, and I'm just sitting there telling myself, okay, you jerk, you can't let it end like this, you know. And it didn't end like that. It just went on through. But there's been a couple, but just to think of them offhand, I couldn't do it. You know, I don't get too much strong reactions over movies, unless I think the director's trying to make some political point I don't agree with. I don't think sometimes movies are the way to do that. You know, just.
So what kind of political points do directors make that you don't agree with? Are they?
Well, it can be any kind of a political point. I go to films for entertainment, and I go to films. I like to go into a film and just get lost for 2 hours, and I like it to be me, the front row on the screen, with nothing in between, where 2 hours goes by and I just go, wow, is it over already? You know, I don't think about how long I've been sitting in the seat, or I don't think I got to go to work. It's just no thought between me and the movie. You know, nobody eating popcorn next to me. So the political point doesn't really matter. It's just I don't like anybody throwing a political point on. Conservative, liberal, socialist, libertarian. I'm not there for that. It's like if you're going to do that, you just label the movie, such and such a movie where I can go to it.
Or do you think they tend to be documentaries that do that? Or, I mean, how does a film force a political point upon you, is there any examples you can give?
Okay,
me?
force a political point upon me wouldn't be the correct
or
thing.
inflict, or whatever.
The only person I could think offhand right now would be somebody that hasn't been at the film festival and be a director like Oliver Stone that has a certain political point of view, and then he builds these make-believe stories around his point of view, and then when the man gets confronted in public over those type of films, he says, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way. I was just telling the truth." And films would be like Nixon, Platoon, stuff like this. It's just, if you got a point of view and you want to put it across, label it what it is, but don't try to sneak up on me and tell me something's true that ain't true, because I don't need that. Usually when I go to a movie, I'm paying my hard-earned money to go to it and all that. Just.
So you're looking for comedies or anything to entertain you, or thrillers, or?
I like anything. I like this year, my favorite film was Comrades, Almost a Love Story. I loved the one by the French director took place during the First World War up in the Baltic states.
Captain Conan or something?
Right, Captain Conan. I thought that was a very good film. But I guess if I had a choice, I'd probably tend towards thrillers, detective stories, or a real good science fiction.
So have you had any encounters with any directors or actors, either by bumping into them at the lobby or?
No, I just when they come in to give the talk, or they go up and give their speech. That French director, the one with Captain Conan, was just. He's the best speaker I've ever seen at a festival. Just sit up there and just have the whole audience completely infatuated with his talking. And he probably, I think he spent about an hour up there, and he probably could have spent 2 or 3 more because he was just a delightful storyteller. And you don't usually get that. Usually they go up and they bring somebody in, or that somebody comes in and they go up and say, "Hi, it was fun making this movie, and I hope you enjoy it," and then they're gone.
And is there anything that you'd like to see change about the festival?
Well, I hope it never ends. If I remember correctly, I think when Daryl, the director of the festival, if I remember correctly, when he first sold the Egyptian Theater, he talked about he would give 5 years after that for the festival. Well, it's been over 5 years and it's still going, and I think it's very successful. I don't know. That's really hard on something to say on something like that. I'd like to see. God, they start at 10 o'clock in the morning now. When you take the screenings.
Have you ever done any of the secret festival? I know you can't mention titles, but have you ever done that? Or?
Pardon?
Have you ever done a secret film festival?
I did when the first couple of years, and then they used to have the secret festival when you bought a series pass. There'd be no movie playing opposite of it, so you'd go see The Secret. But then they separated the Secret Film Festival from the series pass, and I just figured, well, if I'm giving you $250, I ain't going to give you no more than that. And plus, now they have other movies playing alongside that, so I'd rather go see something that I have a choice in rather than go and seeing something that I have no idea what it is, because I've never been a real big fan of the Secret Festival. I've seen some horrible films in the Secret Film, but I can't mention what they are.
Anything else any other thoughts you want to share on the festival?
Pardon?
Anything else you can think of that you want to say about the festival or anything?
Well, I'd like to see something more on a part of the festival that might go back to earlier films. Not so much the silent films, but I'd like to see each festival. I'd like to see some kind where they'd highlight maybe a director. They do that once in a while, but I'd like to see like John Ford highlighted or John Huston highlight. But some of the directors, and just have a highlight where you show maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 of their movies, during it. I like what they were doing a couple years ago, and this year where they show the free movies. Where anybody can go and just get in line to see them. But no, I think it's pretty good unless they could put some new seats in the Egyptian, a little bit more comfortable. But I think it's pretty good the way it is. I think it's a good, having never been to another film festival, it's hard to see how anyone could be more community oriented than Seattle Film Festival is. I wouldn't like to see them shorten it. They've talked about that. But no, I think it's great the way it is, maybe lower the prices on the full-service passes.
Anyone else you think I should talk to that I haven't talked to?
Pardon?
Anyone else you think I should talk to? I've talked to Paul and Steve and Linda. And
I think David would be a good one.
what's his last? Do you know how to contact him, or you
No, I don't. I saved a couple of your handouts to give up, but I don't. You know, like I say, I see these people once a year. I might not see them all year. I might go to a movie and run into them, but other than that, they're just there for that one month, and you sort of talk to them, and they're people you sort of hobnob with for the month, and then it's just like they're gone. You know, who knows where they're at. Just, I would say that next party might be the place to do it.
So Linda's the only person that you see regularly.
Pardon?
Linda's the only person that you see regularly because of work.
I haven't seen Linda. I see her at the festival. We used to work together over at the jail.
Oh, we don't work together anymore.
No, I haven't worked over at the jail since. Well, I've done fill-in for a while, but probably since '90, something like that.
Okay.
But I see her at the festival all the time. You know, she either drives her pickup or rides her motorcycle. And the last time I didn't recognize her, I seen this skinny woman walking by me, and it's like Linda's a lot heavier than that originally, but she went on this diet type thing, and it's like
I remember that.
I looked and I thought, who's this? You know, I thought, it's got to be Linda, and it was Linda. You know, eating carrots and all this. It's like, whoa, you know. But no, I don't, like I say, Paul, and there's that friend of Paul's work at the library.
Yeah.
And then David lives up by the Veterans Administration Hospital someplace. But I only see him once a year. He's retired, so he traveled around a lot. And I see one guy when I sit up here on the 6th floor and smoke cigars out in the fire escape. And I see one guy, I don't know if he's still a pass holder, but he is off and on. But he goes walking by here once from the store every once in a while. But I wouldn't know his name. And I know there's Ray out at Bowings, and he lives over in, I think, Greenwood area. And you know Steve.
Yeah.
But it's like I say, it's like a little group that just sort of gets together once a year for a month, and then they're all gone off to whatever they do, and they have lives that they said, what do they do? Well, I don't know. Wouldn't have any idea, you know. And once in a while I'll run into them. They'll send us the free screening passes and stuff like that. So, you know, see each other once a year or something. Or you'll see some film will show up at the varsity that doesn't play around very much. Like, and so you'll see them there. And then might not even talk to them there. Just like, you know.
You just see them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take your picture and have you sign my guest book.
Okay. Have you talked to Craig?
Craig who?
The espresso guy up there.
No, does he go to the films or something?
Well, he doesn't go, he's not the festival guy, but he does the espresso machine. So he's been there ever since they opened.
I should do that.
And he's just, if one person is, you know, more in contact with anybody, I mean, I'm not saying phone number contact, but just has been around the theater, knows the intrinsics of the theater, it would be Craig. And he might even know some of those people. He's pretty big, or he dealt with other friends within the film community and stuff like that. But the rest of us are just like hermits. I'm bleeding to death.
You can
do it later when you're editing?
Yeah, it was an interesting situation. I learned so much from making a documentary because I got so frustrated with wiring some people because I would get some static, and then now I realize that I just have to change the batteries more often.
Mm-hmm.
So if I stop you and say, oh, battery's really bad, I gotta change it. But it's looking good so far.
How much of me is showing?
I'm doing just.
Okay. So, okay.
Wow, you can do whatever you want.
Is it here to wring my hands or something?
Yeah, well, if you get really animated, I'll just bring the camera back.
Okay.
Let me see. I think I'm just gonna change it. I'm just gonna change the batteries. I think I was trying to do each sheet.
For two different films.
Each just a different person, or? Or
yeah. Well, I had gone to Barnes and Nobles, and they had advertised a screening, and I've never seen this before, but you left an envelope, a business envelope, self-addressed.
Yeah.
And then they were just going to pick and choose who they sent them to. So I wasn't sure I was going to get one for that. But I did, and then Alan got the ticket for The Edge, and he couldn't use it.
Oh.
So he gave it to me, because I didn't know if I was going to get the other one, and I ended up, and then French looked at the two and said, well, if I have to choose, I'm going to go see The Edge.
Yeah, I think my dad would like it. So my dad's in town. So
Oh, so you're gonna take him to see it?
Yeah.
Oh, you should look for French. I'll have him look for you.
Yeah, I'll look. I'll look
Yeah.
for him. So, how long have you been going to the Seattle International Film Festival? We can start talking.
Oh, okay. I've been going to the film festival since the first one. Yeah, I've been thinking back on this, and I was working at Left Bank Books in the public market, and my memory is that we took out an ad at Left Bank Books to put for the first festival, and in return we got one full pass for everybody in the bookstore, all the employees, to share, and that's how I started going. And I've been going ever since. I've gone to every festival since. I've not always had a full series ticket, but I've gone to every festival.
So what started you as a foreign film fan? I mean, how did you get into foreign films with subtitles and everything?
I think mostly when I moved to Seattle, I started doing that. I grew up in Ohio and lived in Oberlin, Ohio, for many years, and Oberlin College always had wonderful film series, and so I think I probably started going to foreign films in Oberlin, and then when I had a chance, but coming out here to Seattle is where I really became a film fan in the true sense, I think.
So how has the festival changed from, I guess, from the mid 70s to, like, you know, I guess the late 90s now? What kind of changes have you seen from the early years in terms of films, in terms of audiences, anything?
It was very small when it started. You look at this first program and you have, you know, this was it, just this many films. So scheduling wasn't a big problem. I think in the beginning it was just at the Moore Egyptian. That's my memories of being there. And then they started adding on other places, and then pretty soon it was at 2 or 3 different theaters. So the audiences increased. The length of time of the festival increased. The scope of the film certainly increased. And I see more Asian films now, films from India, than in the beginning. I think there were more European films in the early days.
I guess looking back on some of the programs that you've seen, can you remember if you can say you've seen that film or something, or how does your mind work in terms of processing all the films that you've seen over the, I guess, 20 plus years?
Oh, I do. There are some films I remember exactly where I was sitting in the theater and who was sitting with me, and I remember Cutter's Way.
I saw that.
Cutter's Way is a film that I've seen many, many times over the years. The last time I saw it was when Sheila Benson came to the film festival and did a program about how a critic evaluates a film. And Cutter's Way was the film that she used, so we all sat and watched it again. And I had probably seen it 5 or 6 times at least up until that point. And I remember her saying that every time she sees it, she saw something different, and that was certainly my experience. And then watching it and then having her go through it as a reviewer and talk about how she would see it and review it was really fascinating. That was a highlight for me. But I remember that night, a veteran stood up in the theater. I was up in the balcony in the Moore, and I remember a veteran standing up and challenging the director, accusing him of ripping off veterans and wanting to know what he was going to do from the proceeds of the movie. You know, that stands in my mind. I remember seeing the German films at the festival. I remember so clearly where I was sitting when I first saw those, the German directors, and my interest. I never would have known about German films and German directors and that whole group that I was introduced through the festival. Oh yeah.
You mentioned something about seating preferences. Did you have any particular seats where you like to sit, and did you have any fights about someone else sitting in your seat?
Oh sure.
You can tell a story.
You develop seating preferences over the years. At the Egyptian, well, I should say first at the Moore, I always sat in the balcony and tried to get the front row of the balcony, or as close to the front row as possible of the balcony. When they started showing films in the Egyptian, would sit in the back center section about 5 rows back on the aisle. And by that time I was going to films with Alan Cohen. Alan Cohen is another SIFF, I was going to say fanatic. I don't
Yeah, you can say that. You can say that.
use the word fanatic. I think Alan was the first lifetime member, and I met Alan early on. I think he started going maybe the third year, I believe. And a friend of ours, Joe Martin, a social worker down at the Pike Market Clinic, introduced us. Alan's a social worker and so am I. And Alan and I have become fast friends. We go to all the festivals together now. And I would say that one of the major benefits of the festival for me has been friendships that have developed for me, and particularly with Alan. I always talk about Alan being the person I spend a month, every year I spend a month in the dark with Alan, and we go to all the films together, and it's been really a great relationship that's developed as a result of that. I was thinking about this today because I knew we were going to be talking, and I was remembering that during the course of the festival, both Alan and I had at least one parent, possibly two, that were critically ill at various times and who died during the course of the festival. We both saw romances go by the wayside and supported each other through that. Remember one year when I was just devastated by a romance that was ending, and spent one whole weekend there every day from the first film until the last one, like 6 a day, and just came in with all my blankets. And at that time the Egyptian theater had an old couch. I don't know, do you remember that couch?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and there was one film, I was just exhausted, and Alan was going to watch it and I wasn't, so I just went with my blankets and my pillows and laid on the couch and took a nap. I had various places that I would sort of sack out when I was really tired, but I stayed there. I took food. I felt like I lived in that theater for that whole weekend, and it really helped me through some bad times that I was going through. So I have a very strong, almost sense of physical closeness with that Egyptian theater, because so much of what happened in my life went on there during that time.
I think you told me or something during the festival that every festival something happens, something goes wrong. Is that just something you're saying, or does that really happen?
Well, it seems to have happened, and Alan and I have this kind of spooky feeling every year. Gee, I hope nobody gets really sick this year, or nobody dies, or nothing is going to happen. But no, it has. We've seen romances come and go, and we've seen family members get very ill. Family members die during that time. Major life changes. Let's see, 3 festivals ago, I got a job during the festival, and I remember being called in for an interview, and I wouldn't go unless they could schedule the interview for a time between movies, because I was just not going to miss anything. And the people who were interviewing me, I think, were fairly shocked that I was so intent that I was willing to jeopardize a job interview for the festival. But that's really how I felt. And this last festival, I quit that job. I worked there for 2 years, and this past year I timed my resignation and my retirement so that I would work right up until the day or so before the festival. So this was a really unique time, this festival, for me, because I wasn't working at all. And this is the first time I've ever gone to a festival where I wasn't working. So I could go to press screenings, I could go to the regular screenings. It was really great.
So how do you choose the films every year when you go to the festival? Do you just go by theater or day or recommendations?
By descriptions. And it usually takes at least 8 hours, I would think, for me to schedule. It's a major undertaking. I go through and just read all the descriptions through once, and then go through and read again a little more closely, and then start marking off, have worksheets. During the year when we get from the Film Society, we get newsletters, and the newsletters will describe other festivals that Daryl and other people have gone to. I'll save those things and mark off things that sound good there and look and see if it's at this festival. And last year I got a program from the Vancouver Festival, and I read those descriptions and looked for what was there and what looked good, and then I just start doing the scheduling and have sort of a working plan for a schedule. But then that also depends on the press releases. Since we've been able to attend the press releases, then so the schedule is kind of constantly changing.
Let me change this real quick. See if that helps a little bit.
What's happening?
Yeah, there it is. So how do you handle conflict with screenings? You probably had times when two films you wanted to see were playing against, do you flip a coin or what do you do?
Well, in that case, then it'll depend on what other theaters I'm going to go to after that, how difficult it is to get from one theater to another. I don't have a car, and so I've been doing all this by bus, and that gets a little tricky. Being able to go to press screenings means that I can see things during the day, and sometimes I don't have to stay as late as I would normally stay in the evening by bus. My husband's really supportive. He will meet me. I'll take the bus to the University District, and then he'll meet me across the street from the Neptune. He'll bike down and meet me, and then we'll walk home together so that I don't have to go home late at night. And there have been times when he's rented a car and come up and picked me up. And he goes to about 10 movies with me. So sometimes I schedule in such a way that I know it's going to be a film that he's going to go to. He's very visual. He's not audio, so he doesn't like films that are subtitled because he can't focus on watching what's going on the screen and reading the subtitles. He feels like he's missing one thing or the other, unless it's in French. He speaks French, and so if they're French films, that's okay, but the rest of them he has problems with. So I pick out films I think he's going to like, and then he'll usually go anywhere from 10 to 15. And on the nights when he comes, then he brings food for Alan and me.
Cool.
If Alan's at that same film, he'll pack up. He'll go to the deli and pack up a whole thing full of food and treats and bring it and watch films and eat with us. And he'll pick us up and often drop Alan off at home if Alan's going home then too. So it turns into this kind of big party. But he's really supportive of me going and spending all that time at the festival.
Yeah, people told me, Steve told me about postponing an operation to the festival. He said if he's going to die, he must enjoy the festival.
That's right. I've postponed medical appointments and other kinds of things. I really don't let very much interfere with it. And my friends and family kind of know and accept that fact that if they want to see me during that month, it's going to be at the festival. So people will call up and say, what are you going to go see? And I'll meet you there. And I'll save seats for people. I shouldn't say that because we shouldn't do that. But I'll save seats for people and meet people there. And I've met some really nice people over the years at the festival. And they're often not people that I see at any other time. But there's this great feeling of seeing them at films. And now that there's more little mini festivals, you see them more often. But it feels like family. It feels like there's this group of people that you've been through something really intense with year after year after year. And I have very fond feelings for them, even if some of them I don't even know their names. I just know them by face, and others I know first names, but I have no idea what their life stories are, who they are, what they do, anything other than at that festival. But there, I mean, you're together, especially now that we are going to the screenings too. You're just together all day, sometimes from 10 o'clock in the morning until late at night. And so there's this kind of camaraderie that develops, and a certain way of speaking with each other and exchanging information.
I'm gonna change mics again. I apologize for this. I'm making sure my sound is getting really bad for some reason.
Do you know what's happening?
I don't know. It might be where you live. Sometimes there's certain, but don't. It's nothing to do with you. Picking up.
Static.
Yeah, but it's nothing to do with you. So I'm gonna. This is much better. So I'm gonna just turn this mic off, and then just place this mic over here. See, I have all these contingency plans. Whenever I'm making sure that I get really good sound because I like what people are telling me, and I want to make sure that I can use as much as possible.
This is really neat equipment. I wish I had all this.
Well, it's within everyone's reach. It used to be very expensive, but now the prices have gone down. Just make sure everything is off. So do you have? I guess the thing I ask everyone to talk about is the Secret Film Festival. I know we can't mention titles, but how has the Secret Film Festival changed over the years? I mean, has it changed for the better or for the worse?
I don't know. I haven't really thought much about that. The Secret Festival for me every year is about a 50-50. And I don't think that's changed a lot. There's usually 2 films that I really like a lot, 1 film that I can't stand, and one that I'm sort of mediocre about. And I don't think that's changed too much for me over the years.
God, I wonder what's happening with my sound all of a sudden.
Maybe we have ghosts in this house.
No, now I finally got it. Do you remember any other audience reactions to certain films? I mean, everyone tells me about the lesbian thing, so you don't have to tell me about that. But were there any other films that incited or sparked the audience to certain reactions that you can think of, or any directors? Or
I remember once at the Secret Festival when I think it was Gary Tucker introducing a film, and they were teasing us. They showed us the first few reels of Flashdance. I don't know, do you remember that?
no, I wasn't back.
And people were going crazy because they thought that's what they were going to be showing us. But they were really teasing us. And then what they told us was that if we dared to tell, I think this was the first one of the series that year, if we dared to tell anybody what we had seen at the Secret Festival, then we would have to sit and watch Flashdance over and over and over. But the thing that I remember so much about the Secret Festival was that sense of anticipation before each film, and then people's reactions as they found out, the credits came on and they found out what it was going to be, and either moaning or hissing or usually cheering, or sometimes just total surprise, people just not knowing at all what it was going to be. Secret festivals are fun. The only thing I don't like about it is the lines. And that it just feels almost out of control anymore, that people are getting there hours and hours before it starts and having to stand in those long lines. And I find that kind of exhausting. One year I didn't go to the Secret Festival. I didn't buy tickets. I went to the children's. There was a really, I thought, unusually good group of children's films that were going on at the same time. I ended up going out to the children's films that year and not to the Secret Festival. But most of the time I go to the Secret Festival. My husband goes to the Secret Festival with me. He likes that sense of
surprise.
A surprise, yeah. And I like a thing.